With a lot of respects to Professor Sharakshara Shettar, the departed scholar with whom I had regular conversations since 2006, pay my homage and try to speak a few words relating to the released book Early Buddhist Artisans and Their Architectural Vocabulary. Professor Shettar, in 6 chapters of the book, Early Buddhist Artisans and Their Architectural Vocabulary, has documented the strenuous activities of the Buddhist artisans, especially in Deccan, including the other areas in India, and the background of their knowledge of architectural activities. Professor Shettar confirms that it was religious institutions that provided opportunities for the artisans to exhibit their skills and execute the idiom that was required and ordered by the patron. Professor Shettar has observed that the artisans were hired, they were not, and treated as slaves. We know that architectural members are the best exhibits to reveal the knowledge and skill of the artisans. Since 3rd century CE, we have many good examples of the architectural wealth in India. Artisans do not represent only the structural exponents but also scribes and other members like potters, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, and many others. In the first chapter, Professor Shettar briefs the epigraphs Chapada engraved at 3 different places and the mistakes he committed because of some valid reasons. Professor Shettar has inferred that a master copy of the edict was kept in the meeting hall and the remaining copies were circulated for engraving. Ashoka, it seems, expected to have uniformity in display of the edicts. With some or the other reason, all the engravers could not transcribe the text of the edicts as expected by Ashoka. Professor Shettar lists 6 categories of scribes. Their task was to engrave the edicts in Greek, Aramaic, Kharoshti, and Prakrit languages. Script adopted in Deccan was Brahmi. It is not known whether the engraver was a literate or not. Ashoka has always addressed the engravers and not the lipikaras, that is scribes, is the observation of Professor Shettar. The work of the engraver is difficult if the surface of the object on which he is expected to engrave is not even. Then the engraver blindly follows the lines marked by the lipikara. For any mistakes, the engraver is blamed and not the lipikara. If the lipikara or the engraver is of local origin with a knowledge of the local language or the language in which he is writing, then the mistakes could be reduced. Professor Shettar's opinion is Deccan was not a Prakrit-speaking area in those days. People of Deccan spoke different languages like Tamil, Kannada, and others. But the official language for conveying the royal orders was Prakrit. The composers of the royal records were migrants from north. It is assumed that the composers of the edicts were normally the Buddhist monks. No personal names are mentioned in any edict of Ashoka. Some artisans like Chapada use 2 scripts, Brahmi and Kharoshti, together in some small minor edicts. During 6th century BCE, along with Chandragupta and Bhadrabahu, some script writers and engravers migrated to south from north. Professor Shettar has observed that edicts of Ashoka were engraved either on the highways or in the proximity of thriving urban centers. The edicts in the south may define the southern limits of the Ashoka's empire. Professor Shettar observes that the triplets at Brahmagiri indicate that. Early Kharoshti artisans in northwest India elevated the Kharoshti language. These artisans were active in Gangetic plains also. Samadamu, Haksa, Yataka were some artisans mentioned in label inscriptions. Brahmi script and Prakrit language were introduced in Deccan by the artisans of Ashokan period. Early images of Buddha, while depicting the Jataka stories, were introduced by Rupakaras. Some Rupakaras during Sangam period in Tamil Nadu were making not only images but also ornaments in various precious metals. There were silversmiths and goldsmiths. There were coppersmiths and stone sculptors also. Some have engraved their initials on the ornaments they have made. In chapter 4, Shettar speaks of Buddhist monuments in Deccan like stupas, chaityas, pillars, images, palaces, etc., and the role played by Prakrit language and the Brahmi script. Monuments were excavated and built. It is learned that Ashoka had established 84,000 stupas in his empire. Rock-cut caves at Kerala, Kaneri, Toranas at Saranath, Vaishali and Allahabad, including monasteries at Nalanda, temple at Bodh Gaya are all referred. Special mention of Sannati and Kanaganahalli with the inscriptions gave more information of Buddhism in Karnataka. More than 300 inscriptions were recovered from Kanaganahalli, and portraits of half a dozen royal personalities have come to light from the excavated site, which include a portrait sculpture of Ashoka with his name engraved as Raja Asoko. Mention of some name of the artisans are found at Kanaganahalli: Rupakara, Kalkutiga, Mithaka, Vishwakarma, Khani, or some artisans mentioned in the inscriptions. Professor Shetter in his work has identified many artisans, and some artisans have acted as acharyas and upadhyayas also. After Mauryas and Shatavahanas, Kadambas and Chalukyas of Badami also patronized the activities of the construction of Buddhist monuments such as viharas and chaityas. A Buddha vihara at Aihole is worth studying, and Professor Shetter has mentioned the inscriptions at Buddhist vihara near Meguti temple at Aihole. The sojourn of Professor Shetter in the Buddhist-dominated area in Deccan and his observations of the architecture and artisans in general and the influence of Prakrit language and Brahmi script in Deccan in particular gives the depth of his knowledge of art history, which enriches the knowledge of readers. Much more of Professor Shetter's publications are forthcoming, which will widen the knowledge of art history not only in Karnataka and India but also in the whole world. A painful note is, we are blessed with his knowledge but without his presence. Thank you.